6 Dota matches that have been played since that series. And since then, I feel like Lifestealer has risen from like an A tier carry to the S tier. However, BetBoom team did actually play against Lifestealer in one of those matches. And I want to talk about the value that the hero brings and why it might be something that BetBoom team needs to be careful up against at playing against in this upcoming series. Roll the clips, please.
Roll them.
All right, check this out. In the laning stage, they did a pretty good job against Radon. They've got this Primal Beast that was picked after the lifesteal, I believe. They've got all these hard disables. But Radon was here to break ankles. He steals the Wisdom Rune. He's like gonna die. He walks over to neutral camp, he dies to neutrals. That's problem number one. You don't have to play against Radon today, so that's slightly less of a worry. But check out this later gank against Radon here. If he does use his Rage, you can use the ulti, you can actually kill him. So they had good hero matchups in that example. But as the game continued, Radon continued to farm in this place on the map. And the difficult thing is that he's hard to catch, actually. He's very fast. He does have magic immunity, so there's only one way to pierce it, which means he gets to still be pretty aggressive on the map. And even with very few items, he provides a pretty large threat. And even if he does get low, he can infest an ally who could back him up if they coordinate it really effectively. And if that's the case, these early skirmishes against Lifestealer are not likely going to go good. So Lifestealer provides something that a lot of other carries just don't. And here's, I think, the most valuable thing that he provides. Much like the Tide carry that Falcons went through, a hero like Lifestealer is really good at running up these bad cliffs. He's running up a double cliff into a very likely enemy team, and that allows you to actually be the frontliner that goes farther and extends your life farther than most other heroes would. So Lifestealer not only is a dangerous laning hero against most offlane heroes, he can farm aggressive places on the map where he's less likely to die to ganks. He can save an ally if they get low with an infest, and you can be the guy to frontline into these Tormentor areas, which gives you a higher chance of winning that team fight, taking the Tormentor, and then have a higher chance of winning the game. So Lifestealer, I think, has got to be on the radar for BetBoom team in this game. They probably want to ban it like a lot of other teams have been doing because it has been on a win rate increase lately.
Appreciate the insight, Purge, and specifically that very last fight that you showed was in a unique part of the map. Part of the map that we've been spending a lot of focus on, and one that I'm ready to delve into even more with Effie. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for Tormy Watch.
Did you guys...
I burn the midnight oil.
Welcome to another segment of Tormy Time, where I, your reporter on site, will deliver all the breaking news of this change. If you tuned into yesterday's Tormy Time before it was called that, now it's called it, there was a bit of an imbalance, right? We're talking about first Tormentor. It's broken. Is it better for Radiant? Is it better for Dire? Everybody thinks it's better for Dire. Yesterday, Group stage day 2, first day, I mean, 7 out of 10 times first Tormentor was taken. It was taken by Dire. But yesterday, did it change, Neil? Did it change that?
Surely Dire's still getting all the first
Yeah, I think that's definitely by far in the majority. Yeah.
Let's pull up the stat, please, and see how the teams have been adjusting to the Tormentor.
Yes, sir.
So yesterday, in 7 out of the 10 maps played, Radiant actually took first Tormentor.
What?
Yep. I think this is a result of every time Radiant took first Tormentor, their gameplay was actually a little bit harder. In day 1 of Group Stage 2, every time Dire took first Tormentor, they were more likely than not to win the game. This time around, Radiant only won 3 out of 4 maps where they took first Tormentor. And I just was curious what my panel thinks this could mean here in Tormy Time. Could it be that Radiant is overreacting to Tormentor? Are they outdrafting themselves? Are they changing too much of their map play?
I think changing too much of a map play. I think everyone wasn't aware how important this Tormentor was, and then we had this Group Stage 2, day 1, and the numbers were staggering, right? It was like 70% of teams who took the first Tormentor ended up going on and winning the game. Like, that's amazing to kind of swing the numbers in your favor that way. So in day number 2, everyone places this priority on it. You play your map differently. You take fights that you might not necessarily be ready for. Maybe you think you only need 4 heroes for this Tormentor, and then all of a sudden 5 heroes of the enemy team shows up. You just get team wiped, and on top of that, you don't get Tormentor. So I think it is like a lot, you're forcing things that you're not ready for, and then you're playing your map differently, ensuring that by 15 minutes, you have your safe lane wave pushed out if you're on the side of Radiant.
Another thing I really noticed was the places that teams are placing wards has shifted every single day. Like the first day the patch came out, everyone walks to that high ground right where the tormentor is, and they're like, ward sentry right on the middle spot. And then the other team comes up and they're like, sentry, sentry, they get every ward. And then the next time we see Heroic play, they put that little squirrely ward in the bottom right corner to give them
The
some
little
information.
ice cream cone
Yeah,
where
the
it's like
the
this
little
little
thin one.
sliver.
And then next time I see teams playing, they're placing wards like wide of the pit to spot them approaching the tormentor area, because they're like, okay, well, we know defending the high ground's a little hard, but if we get them outside, so the tempo and the meta is definitely developing with every single day of matches that we're seeing. So I'm sure that's why the percentages are changing.
Yeah, well, first Tormentor team did win half of the time, but it definitely won more on Dire. And honestly, it's just because of the natural flow of Dota and the game state is when you're Dire, you naturally play Radiant jungle anyway at that stage of the game. So once you take that Tormentor, that opens up the jungle to you for your team to play, which is where you would have gone anyway. So you're effectively taking two big objectives. One, the enemy jungle, the enemy safe lane tower, Tormentor, right? You've opened up the map for yourselves. Whereas when you're Radiant and you win that Tormentor fight, you haven't taken over the Dire jungle as you want to be doing around that time. So you're only getting the big net worth swing and the shard, but you aren't taking the map control that Dire naturally has when they play for Tormentor.
What you were just saying there as well, Purge, actually really made me wonder the wards, right? Not only that we're seeing different wards, but how many resources are now being used on Tormentor? Because that's also a factor. How many smokes are teams using leading up to this? Are they trying to get a pick off before the 15-minute mark so they know they have the numbers? Are they smoking into it? Are you using double sentries? Are you maybe having to use 3 sentries? Are you placing down 2 observer wards? Is it too much that's going into this bottom part that you then end up, like, by consequence, losing other areas of this map as well if you've used too many resources for this specific 15-minute mark?
That's a good point. And it seems like no team has really gone for the ignore Tormentor, save our resources, do something else.
Wow.
No.
Is that true?
That's not
Someone
true.
did it?
You have to save that for tomorrow's Tormy Time watch, though.
Tory time? Our Tory time segment.
Because
Tormy time.
day 1 was a Dire favored
Tormy time.
Tormy time. Day 2 may have been a Radiant overcorrection. And day 3, it seems like Spirit may have had a new approach, but we need all of the data. Perhaps the data from this series, Purge, will help us coalesce a narrative on what these teams are figuring out about these Tormies. Thank you very much for another Tormy time, Effie. We'll check in tomorrow. But for right now, it's going to be Tundra versus a BetBoom team, where what was Tundra's takeaway on yesterday's Tormy time against Paravision? Were they overcorrecting? Were they Radiant hands-offing it? What was the...
Okay, so it took me a while to get these stats, Neil, and it was a long day, but I think it was 2 out of 3 times the winning team did take the first Tormentor, but that's not the reason why they won the game. Like, those games were pretty insane and going back and forth in a lot of multiple ways. I also think that often, like, first Tormentor also reflects on your laning state, like how well you've been doing on lanes, and naturally the team that has a net worth advantage. Oh?
This is a new addition.
That is the draft.
Whoa,
I loved that.
that was crazy.
Wow. Stop the presses. It's draft time, friends.
Shut the fuck up about Tormentor. Who gives a shit? Let's talk about some heroes.
Let's see some heroes. Let's not see some heroes. Let's not see Dragon Knight, Tiny, Alchemist, and Doom gets first phase respected by BetBoom team after Tundra were running it left and right yesterday.
I was gonna say, I don't know what Tundra took away from their series against Paravision yesterday, but my takeaway was gold net worth lead means nothing.
No.
Literally nothing. You could be 30k up, you could be 13k up, you could be 70k up and still lose your racks. If you're Tundra.
It was a weird game for that reason, actually. It really was consistent against multiple games. A lot of, like, you're just behind and you get one pick off, and now it's a good time to high ground.
Specifically, a Duraccio pickoff would tend to snowball into a lot of bad things for Tundra, but let's see if they can shake off that best-of-3 loss as they ban out the Monkey King, the Night Stalker, and Gyro. And if they don't get their hands on Doom, they'll get their hands on another 33 hero. Most likely could, I suppose, be a carry Beastmaster as well, but that's their first pick.
That is what I wanted to say, Neil. I think the biggest takeaway for me watching Tundra yesterday is in these prolonged games, they make more mistakes than we're used to seeing them make. Because typically they've been winning on high momentum, snowbally type of lineups where they're not taking it like all the way to minute 50 plus. But yesterday we were seeing Duraccio pull out vintage Duraccio moves in these really long games, getting picked off on side lanes, going uphill, high ground, getting stunned by Jakiro and dying. A lot of these things that he's kind of shelved for the past few months.
Been notorious for better or for worse, because Vintage Duraccio can also single-handedly win you the game off of maneuvers like this, but sometimes it comes back to bite you, and in that series against Parivision it did.
Yeah, so just to conclude that, I think that Tundra have realized that like mid-game is their strongest element, and today I expect them to always draft for that mid-game. Because in the late game, that is where we saw them make a lot of uncharacteristic mistakes. And like Nat T mentioned, they hadn't lost a best of 3 up until this point. They haven't been pushed to that duration of game for a while, and maybe it's not their forte.
And I wonder if some of the perseverance that Paravision showed is going to break Tundra's confidence a little bit, because I feel like a lot of their players had uncomfortable moments, which, like you said, for Duraccio, is not normal for them lately. So maybe it's going to make them rethink the patch a little bit, rethink their game tempo, rethink their drafting. That could put them on a back foot.
At least it's hopefully what Stoxo wanted whenever I interviewed him. He felt like other teams may not have fully gotten a grasp on the patch yet. That was just one day, and day 2, they finally succumbed. Meanwhile, the Beastmaster ends up getting responded to by a first phase Amber Spirit, which is a little surprising to me. Whenever I see core-to-core responses, it's usually the same lane. But here, Tundra choose either an off lane or a carry, and BetBoom team give them a mid laner right back.
I mean, this isn't unusual, like Tundra going for the Beastmaster. We've seen that this hero can be flexed between 1 and 3, still farms very effectively and still hits that mid-game timing that I was talked about. The Ember pickup, on the other hand, this is a hero that I expect to go up in popularity severely over the next few days, because we talk about all of these early objectives, Tormentors, Roshans, things that happen a few minutes after each other, and what you need is like one big damage reduction item, like a pipe or a Mage Slayer, and Ember is naturally building these Mage Slayers to be ready for a lot of these early engagements, and he's looked very good for that reason.
He also forces a lot of like specific hero responses out of your opponents, because you have to consider the lockdown necessities of dealing with Ember Spirit, or you have to really focus on beating him in the mid lane, which seems fine, but he always kind of recovers with his split pushing and his ganking. So I just feel like Ember is in a safe place right now. There's a lot of minus armor items that are popular, like Orb of Corrosion or the tier 1 Blightstone neutral items, so he can get a lot done at all stages of the game, and he really is item flexible too.
His biggest issue is the existence of Huskar, though. Like,
That's true.
I mean, some teams have shown us their take that they can beat Huskar even with Ember. Heroic yesterday opted to not ban out Huskar when they picked Ember, and they got crushed in lane, but they won the game anyway versus Falcons.
Maybe more Falcons mistakes than it was like the Huskar, but yeah, you're right. The laning stage can be iffy. Instead, they choose to ban out the Marcy, which is something that Tundra showed very clearly as a winning hero, especially in their hands. So choosing that lane problem over worrying about the mid matchup, at least for now. Just one of the downsides of Ember. He's almost always in the mid lane. You don't really see him in side lanes anymore. You desperately need the levels on this hero. But this is probably the most standard support opening into the second phase here. The Jakiro, you don't know your opponents are picking yet. It's just a safe, strong hero. Ice Path has like been the spell of the tournament for the last couple days. I feel like it's just so impactful if you landed on 2 to 3 heroes multiple times a fight.
Yeah, it's been either him or Warlock most likely in this slot, and because BetBoom team don't opt to ban a Huskar or a Shaker, then Tundra may have an embarrassment of riches of what to send up against the mid lane. Also, Bezium did show Invoker was very, very capable in his hands, but I feel like Invoker was mainly advantageous against Ember when it was Quas Wex Invoker, and these days you kind of have to go Exort, so you can't really dispel his Flame Guard.
Yeah, it does feel like Invoker is mostly just played on the Exort facet now, but choosing to not punish this Ember on lane would be a choice by Tundra, like an interesting choice, because this is where the hero is most exploitable. Because if that hero gets off to a good laning stage, he rotates, he fights early, he builds really early tempo items.
The Muerta is still a popular 4, but maybe not the most as it was in the past, but it's still strong. The Beastmaster plus Muerta lane solidifies that laning stage. They will need a strong 4 to help combat what Jakiro is bringing to the table, which is a huge amount of damage and a lot of attack speed slow.
But also just early objective security, right? Like that first fight bottom, minute 15, 5v5, Jakiro has clutched so many of these fights.
Yeah.
That's such a narrow choke point for him, and his Macropyre has been very highly effective.
And one other thing is that Muerta's silence is going to be really good against Ember, so kind of does both things, laning stage and potential Ember lockdown.
Neil called it. He said, what about Invoker?
Nat, get your tickets for the show. BZM's putting on another performance, an encore.
I was gonna say, we could throw out so many different heroes for BZM, but he has such a good way of playing not only unfavorable matchups, so it feels like sometimes when you think about his hero, you can disregard what happens in the laning phase, because sometimes he just comes out on top despite all of the on paper being against him. But his Invoker yesterday was so good.
And it was against a sniper.
Yeah, that's one of those ones, right? It was an unfavorable matchup. He ends up coming out on top. He does so well with it, and just the impact now of this later game Invoker and just how talented he is with it, it's hard. And I also love how comically large the meatballs are.
Some thick meatballs.
When you pick the facet.
The Exort facet, yeah. Which I'm assuming that is the only way you can play him. If your base damage is that garbage, you might as well double down on Exort being both your facet and what you're leveling up early game.
Yeah, I do wonder if there's like a realm where you could play a support Invoker and go the other facets, because they feel more defensive and like the extra oomph that his abilities get. But anyway, that's not going to happen for Tundra. That's just a random side thought that I had.
Kind of interesting that BetBoom grabs Magnus as their flex as a third rather than earlier in the phase, but has good potential there. And the Pugna pick is also interesting because it's traditionally a 5 hero, but it has to be probably their 4 save. Typically was the Pugna player on all of his teams, so I assume it's going to be Pugna save. So I'm curious to see what items he gets.
No, yeah, Save is a great Pugna player. Like, I would be very surprised if he didn't take it. And as to what you said, Nat, I think that's probably going to happen eventually, like in the phase of Invoker, because it always cycles into support at some point, and people try it. All they need to do is, like, buff one item, like one support item, maybe like a tiny little Spirit Vessel buff, and we could see that happening. But, yeah, the Pugna, I think what it provides the team is also the Nether Ward versus Invoker, right? The spellcasting Invoker has always fallen susceptible to this in particular, so it's kind of an old school matchup resurfacing where you want to spellcast your butt off, you want a 5-man with your Beastmaster, we're going to have this like Nether Ward that you have to try to commit heroes on, and then we're going to counter when you try to commit on the Nether Ward with the RP.
And it makes a lot of sense this game, because if you look at the Tundra heroes, with the exception of a later Blink Beastmaster, they don't have good divers right now. They are a team that's going to fight around behind the Lifestealer, kind of casting spells. And on the other squad, it's the same thing. Pugna's going to sit behind his front line. He's going to decrypt the heroes that get gone on, and he's going to heal them as well, which has been buffed back to its former glory.
So what was your takeaway whenever you were showing BetBoom team going up against Lifestealers? Because apparently they were not afraid of it. The hero of the patch.
They have physical resistance with decrypt. They have Ember Spirit, who doesn't have to worry about it that bad as long as he already has a Revenant down, and they also have a BKB Piercing, Stun, and Magnus. So they've got a lot of things that are ready to deal with it. Not to mention, Jakiro's pretty happy if people run into a choke point. Even if he's magic immune, he's still going to have a Macro Pyre there. He's still going to have an Ice Path, which makes it harder for Lifestealer to do his job. So all that considered, I think they have good heroes for it.
I do think he is going to get quite kited at the moment when I look at everything that's on the side of BetBoom team. None of them really want to clump up. None of them really want to collapse all in onto a hero and kind of sit on top of him. They're all willing to play these outskirts of a bit of a fight. And so Lifestealer, it's like, okay, he could turn, and what if he wants to go for the Jakiro? If the Pugna's nearby, you can use the Decrep on allies. It's not as easy. It's not as easy to go on the Pugna either. And the Magnus, for me, has a lot of potential defensive saves for him. You don't really want to be using your spells that way, but you can.
Also, the Infest save should not be underestimated. There have been a lot of moments already this DreamLeague where Lifestealer has clutch saved with an Infest, where a really key kill could have happened and he just offsets that. But I do wonder if BetBoom pack enough of a burst damage punch right now to like commit to the target they're locking down. It feels like they do have good damage, but once the Infest start coming out, they need a little bit more oomph.
Yeah, they have Empower with Ember, which helps a little bit, but Embers have been going a lot of hybrid damage and not super right-click heavy, so yeah, I definitely agree. They could have some single target damage issues. Could be rectified by an eventual carry pick for their squad, but considering the offlane bans on the Tundra side, I think they're expecting the Magnus to be carry.
I want to see a heavy physical damage carry come out of BetBoom, because if Beastmaster buys a pipe, he's negating a lot of the damage output for a BetBoom team. Like whether he chooses to go Helm Dom or Ags, pipe should be the next item.
So you wouldn't be enthusiastic about BetBoom making this Magnus a carry?
Actually, that would be fine, because when he's carry, he does do a lot of physical damage.
Which may be the option that they go for. Meanwhile, Tundra close out their support duo with a Mirana after Bounty Hunter and Phoenix get banned out.
And all the tanky heroes that BetBoom might want for their offlane are lane countered by Lifestealer in a lot of cases. You will have to do little lane shenanigans, because they do need a mix of tank if they are gonna pick it, and that's not it. So, is this Ricky Carey?
Who the hell's the
What?
off?
Ricky Carey, yeah, Ricky
is.
Carey.
Carey.
They did buff his third skill. When you get last hits, it lowers your cooldown. There is the potential for a
Wait.
Battle Fury.
Wait, this
Do they send Ricky mid?
No, no, no.
He'll just go safe lane, I assume.
But I thought Ricky versus Invoker was like a thing.
Sure, but it's pure plane. It's
Yeah.
just
Yeah,
going
that's
safe
true.
lane.
He's in safe
Your third skill gets cooldown reduced when you kill creeps.
Mm-hmm.
If you bind Ags either before or after Battle Fury, you're going to meet used to lay creeps with that thing. You could really see him be abusing a mechanic that was changed in the patch, but we haven't seen for pro games yet. So I'm excited to see this. And he's going to be able to get away from Dyrachyo consistently throughout the entire game. So I like it. Smoke Cloud's good this game.
I like that. I like that Pure always busts out weird heroes. That's just really cool about him, because like when you look at it conceptually, we don't know how actually strong it is because we haven't seen it, but conceptually it jumps Invoker. Invoker is very slow. Once you get the Diffusal Blade, that's such a quick punish on the Invoker. It is a nuisance for Lifestealer because you can't rage, and you either have to buy BKB or an MKB, which makes it really annoying to play, and both supports, they'll die to the Smoke Cloud. So it on paper it works, but I do wonder how it looks like in practice. It's cool though, I really like it.
Cap and Avery, did you buy admission for a repeat performance of the BZM Invoker?
No, I'll be honest. They were talking earlier backstage about the train here and everything. When I lived in Germany, I never paid for that. I was just like, whatever, man. I'll take the
freeloader.
fine. I'll take the fine. I never got caught.
He's a
I never
gambling
got
man.
caught. There were several times where the guy was walking through the train. I was like, oh, I gotta get out of here.
You just play the dumb American card. I didn't.
Yeah, sorry,
What?
you know.
My bad.
I only speak English.
So did
Sorry.
you jump off the train every time?
Yeah, while it
Every
was
time-
moving.
Every time I saw the guy coming, I just broke down a window and leaped out. I paid my price in blood, Kevin.
That's fair. It's a good trade.
But Avery, you're a law-abiding citizen, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No way.
I didn't even
This
summon
is
that
so
one.
savage. No one did.
Oh, this man's ready. This man's locked in. Let's get him into the game, ladies and gentlemen. Let's get into game number 1 with the PogChamp Pandas.
The drums and horn of battle sound, and warriors march to their lines. BetBoom versus Tundra, a matchup that was at one point in time the number 1 and number 2 team of this season, but both have been laying low recently, Avery.
I'd say. Wait, what? Laying low?
Yeah.
How is Tundra laying low?
Tundra got
Won everything.
Tundra lost again.
Oh, they lost a game, so
Yeah,
that's
they
laying
lost the
low for
series.
them. Oh, I see.
They're no longer number 1.
Oh, I see. Who's,
Got beat
who's
out by
number 1?
I mean, it must be Parivision then.
So it's just whoever wins the last series is number 1?
Yeah. Have you not checked Reddit? That is entirely how it goes.
Oh.
As soon as you lose one series, even one game, you're washed. Gotta kick somebody, replace some dude with somebody else who's not currently playing. Every time.
Okay, well, that makes sense. I think BetBoom team have had a lot more struggles lately, but maybe they're on the up here. The patch has revitalized them. Don't seem to be buying that one.
I guess I question, do you feel like the patch favors any playstyle right now? From what we have seen and the direction we're going?
I think it favors teams that are good at team fighting and itemizing for that.
Okay. All right. That sounds like...
I actually feel like it does not favor teams who just want to stall and play map-based control styles.
Okay, that sounds like it's not Falcons, then.
Yeah. The lane-dominating teams in another category.
Okay, BetBoom, that's kind of been their thing for a while, and I think even with the changes of roster, I think it's still a key element of theirs. Maybe not the most important thing anymore.
I think they're in the middle. I'm still trying to determine how much laning actually matters in this patch.
Okay.
I think it's hard to determine at the start. I think the more data you get, the longer it goes, you learn more about how to take advantage of that laning. I think at the start, the games are chaotic. It doesn't matter as much. So time will tell for sure. But so far, I don't think it's actually mattered too much. I think with a lot of the games we've seen, lanes get stomped. Like, imagine all these Huskar games we've seen. It doesn't really seem to matter, right? You can be up 6 or 7K. You can have an extra item on the Huskar, but if he can't take the fight, who really cares about that?
Sure.
And we've seen high ground be pretty difficult.
Yeah. Yes, we have. First blood gets collected by Pure. Very nicely kited out. And the carry Riki already off to a great start. What do you think about this carry Riki? Because this is an old school counter to lifesteal.
This Exterminator facet is a very interesting one. You get extra agi when hitting creeps, so if you combine this with the ags, you farm really fast.
Yeah.
You actually just turn into like the fastest farming hero in the game. You can do Ancients really early. You just burst them down. I kind of believe in it, honestly. I kind of do. I think with Empower, it's even better. I just think the hero's early game to get to that point is so slow.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, is it slow compared to almost any other carry?
Which is why it's so nice that they managed to get first blood. That obviously seriously boosts the hero up. They're going to fight over the Lotus. Sox committing his life to try and get it, and he will give up his life. Now 33's turn to take the 1v2. Pierre's going to have to walk away. Kataomi, he will also be shoved out. Lotus is grabbed by 33.
I might die here.
Yeah, it's looking like with the axes, he probably runs him down with the boots pickup from Courier. Though making a turnaround, actually, 33 has to pop the Lotus. Oh, Kataomi lives, and Pure picks up yet another.
This Jakiro, his level 1 spells are just so strong in terms of value points compared to most heroes. Costs you very little mana and does a lot in these trades. He'll get the deny to send him back to base, and a nice start for the Riki Maru here.
Yeah, his CS is absolutely terrible. Bottom of all the cores. Net worth, top. Absolute top, and he dodges a blood grenade.
Another Starfall available. I think he's dead here, but I don't really think there was anything else for Pure to do. Honestly.
Yeah.
You had to go to base to re-enter the lane, so he'll take the death, come back.
And coming back to lane with infused raindrop or the corrosion, 33 is going to be in some trouble.
The thing I always ask myself in these new patches is I always look at the items. I think it's more important than the heroes.
Yeah.
And I think one of the biggest things to look at these carries is what are the best farming items? What are the farming items that got buffed and what are the ones that got nerfed? Battle Fury got buffed a little bit in terms of the timing on it.
Okay.
We've seen Radiance be pretty popular. The days of things like Mjolnir, Gleitner Rush are kind of gone, right?
Yeah.
Midas is a little available, but we haven't seen it on carries. Like, we don't see the Midas Lifestealer, for example. So if you're in this kind of Battle Fury Radiance area, you're looking at heroes that thrive with that as their first item. And that's most of the carry pool right now. Unless you're Gyro Medusa, because as Whitemon goes down, they're Gyro Medusa.
They're independent of
yes, they have their own farming.
Or farming items, right? Yeah.
So then there's Riki. Okay? And the thing about Riki is he has traditionally almost never bought a first item farming item that any of the other carries buy.
Sure.
Other than briefly Battle Fury at one point.
There was a time where Battle Fury, in a way, him rushing Aghanim Scepter is his farming item.
Exactly. And the issue with that, though, is that if you're rushing Ags as a farming item, the buildup is really bad. Like, Ags as a first item buildup is atrocious. You're basically sinking 4K gold that does nothing for you until you finish it and it unlocks the spell. So that is my biggest weakness as hero compared to a lot of traditional carries. Maybe there's an in-between build you can go on this hero.
Okay, I'm going to push back against that a little bit here. Aghanim's buildup is better than Radiant's buildup. Radiance is just empty gold.
I actually don't think that's even true.
Really?
Oh, nice path. BZM. Getting games.
Now, Soxa's going to be in some trouble, too. A couple of shots for the Jakiro. Blood grenade raining down. Save. He'll be countered by Whitemon. Coming up the river, Decrepify trying to live, but Whitemon can shoot through that Decrepify. This time around, Whitemon is not going to be the be-all, end-all of saves like we saw yesterday, where he was playing Pugna against, what was it? He was playing against Pango?
Pango,
TB, and another physical damage. Dazzle. That's right.
Not going to have the same effect here, but can be strong in the team fights versus all the spellcasters. Whenever you can gank Invoker in the laning phase, you're going to feel good about it. This is when he's really susceptible. Got to put him behind. You got to slow down the Midas timing. The hero's very beatable. That's his biggest weakness you can exploit. Don't let BZM get to the late game where he will likely demolish you.
Yeah. I mean, they do have...
Dive on 33.
Yeah, Pure is not letting up, man. Sunstrike coming in. It actually hits. Pure is still able to get away, though.
Did it tag the Hawk there? I feel like it did reduce damage.
What?
It's Sunstrike.
It's an allied unit, though.
He took 0 damage. Oh,
no, it's just... I think he just had raindrop, right?
Yeah. There was nothing else there, right? Okay. I'm just seeing things. Ignore me.
Okay. I try to. And as a result, BetBoom up 2K.
BetBoom getting really aggressive in this safe lane, which is nice for the Riki if you're fighting, not great at pressuring the tower. So I don't think Tundra are going to get pressured objectively down here, but you could lose some map control if you start bleeding out kills to this Riki, who's had a very fast start. I could see Pure just go for a fighting item here, especially since he has the Magnus to give him the cleave.
Oh. Okay, hit the ice path. Chasing him away. Decrepify goes out to try and deal with some of the cold snap. Pure's actually going to cut across the river and join in on this gank. It helps get the kill on BZM. Now he's pushing forward for another one. Pops over, gets Whitemon as well. Pure is just all over the place, man. He has been a part of 6 kills. He's got 5 assists, unfortunately, but 6 of the 8 kills.
He's having a very good time in this early game. No one really to contest this Riki. Tundra have to push this game later, where they can maybe catch him with a roar into some combinations here. Early skirmish power from BetBoom is significant, and you're trying to fight around an Exort Invoker. There's just nothing to contribute there, really. This is not the Colossus Wex of old, so not a lane you want to get sucked into if you're Tundra. And that tower's basically dead.
Dire's middle tower is under attack.
Looking at the Beastmaster again, still not level 6.
Dire's middle tower has fallen.
Does he know that it's not just Kataomi? Probably assumes at this point. They have been pretty relentless on their pressure on 33. And 33, he doesn't have the same ancient stacks to go back to. He's farming this hard camp and medium camp. But it's probably slower than farming a full-on ancient stack with axes over and over again. And the triangle ancient camp has already been scouted out, so unlikely that 33 gets that uncontested. Pure is all the way back behind the tier 2. Save's even going to try and join him here. See if he can hit a blast. They need a little bit of extra damage or not. Pure just does so damn much.
That Sleight of Fist did 245 damage? Double impact.
Yeah, I guess the Hawk plays against you sometimes. If you're Beastmaster, it's you and the Hawk. It hits multiple units. And then the potential there that you get double hit.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, because if you're alone, it can't do a double impact. But if there's more than one unit...
Was that even a double impact? I think it might have just been the hit.
Maybe.
You get 160 bonus hero damage. He's already hitting for 140 with Empower. He has
Dude, Pure, leave him alone already, man. He was thinking about going over there again. Ridiculous. BZM is going to be chased down underneath the tier 2. What's Tundra's game plan here at this point?
Go anywhere but mid. That's what the game plan should be right now. And pray Doraccio carries you, because he's the only one having anything in this early game, and he's queued up the armlet. Probably a wise decision. I think he's going to have to get active sooner than rushing the Radiance.
Yeah, he wanted Radiance, but I think this last death on BZM was finally the breaking point for him. BZM still does not have his Hand of Midas.
And it'll be fast diffusal for the Riki. Taking benefit of that Empower. You can always just farm heroes, too. You get it fast enough. You know, nice thing for Pure in this game is you also have Pugna Jakiro support duo. 2 heroes that will take these tier 1s just by grinding them down. Really nice for the Riki, because this hero really suffers taking early objectives. So the fact you can open up these towers, increase the map availability for the Riki with the invis, put more strain on Tundra's sentry capability. Feels super good here.
It does feel like a lineup that was crafted pretty well for a carry Riki.
They also have 2 cores between the Riki and the Ember that both have Orb Corrosion plus Orb Destruction. And you get hit by the Riki or the Ember, you're automatically losing 5 armor. And not a lot of these Tundra heroes have early armor.
There are also 2 heroes that really benefit from the Empower that Mag's going to give them. Another reason maybe why you don't need that farming item on the Riki if he keeps on getting these kills.
That's why these slights are hurting so much. Nobody on the side of Tundra has more than 5 armor except the Lifestealer.
Waimon. He needs that level 6, man. It's his only defense mechanism at this point. Give him a dispel and a way to dodge some physical damage. And Miro's chilling. He went for the Empower facet. So I guess that just means he doesn't have to empower himself and can save that for his allies, because I do feel like he should be empowering Ember Riki quite a good amount.
I mean, he's just farming and scaling too.
Yeah.
This is a tough tricore to skirmish into if you're Tundra until this Invoker is completely online, and that is just going to be a long way away. Currently meteoring neutral camps and creeps, so catch-up duty for some of these Tundra cores as they leave the fighting to Duraccio, perhaps, who has switched back to Radiance. He's debating between that and the Armlet, but you got to get it right here and take the proper fight.
So you're telling me this item that he has right now, which is nothing, with his 3,000 gold, is worth... Okay, now he bought out the Armlet. It's worth more than plus 10 to all stats?
Yes.
Building up an Aghanim, you're telling me it's worth more? Okay. That's a bold claim, I guess.
I think... What I'm saying is that for the heroes that buy the Talisman first and fight with it like Brewmaster, I think you get more value.
Okay.
And I think for the heroes that rush the Relic, get it at a solid time, and then farm with the Relic to finish Radiance, this is actually a better build-up than the Axe.
Okay.
I'm not saying you were getting more at that exact time, but I think the investment, the build-up, and the payoff is just a better sequence. I just hate Axe build-up. That's all you need to know.
I can tell. Jeez.
33 hates this lane right now because he has been decimated completely. He's lost his tower. He's losing his life. He's losing his ancient stacks.
What do you think the last time 33 went 0-5-0 in 15 minutes?
Probably 3 years ago.
Probably back when he was playing on like some join Dota League.
Yeah, probably was on some garbage team like Optic Gaming or something. With garbage players like Quinn and Zai. Imagine that team.
Yeah. Quinn and Zai. Wow. There was some talent on that roster.
Yeah, there really was. That's the thing about Dota. It doesn't matter if you're good. It matters if you're good in the right place at the right time. In other words, nepotism, Austin.
What?
It's all about the networking and who you know. And you, of all people, should know that.
Are you saying all TI winners are somehow related to or friends with IceFrog?
I've seen a lot of suspicious patch notes in my time, I'll tell you that much.
You just read between the lines sometimes. It says, this one's for you, 33.
You would be surprised at what has been pushed in this game due to very specific players. I think you'd be surprised.
Well, I would never will be surprised if you don't tell me.
Afraid I can't do that, Mr. Walsh.
Okay, well.
Afraid I can't do that.
Keep your secrets then.
I'm just saying, you know, think of like who is the most...
I don't know what conspiracy theory you're pushing right now.
Radiant's top tower
It's like
is
the
under
mammoth
attack.
all over again.
You know, like let's say you saw a Lone Druid buff. Who do you think would be fighting for a lone druid buff?
First thing would be Bulldog.
Right. It's like something like that, you know? So now you just do that for every hero player in the game that really likes their hero. And it creates a bias over time, right? Because they're constantly pushing for buffs on that hero.
Yeah.